Imagine a world where the economic landscape was dominated by a select few European powers. London reigned supreme as the financial capital, and global trade, though expanding, largely followed the paths laid out by colonial rulers. Now picture that entire system crumbling in just 4 years. We're not talking about mere political upheaval or redrawn borders. We're talking about a seismic shift in wealth and power that completely transformed the global economy forever. By 1918, the old order lay in ruins, and a new economic giant was stirring across the Atlantic. The First World War. It wasn't just a conflict that ravaged nations and reshaped maps. It triggered an economic revolution. Before 1914, Europe held the reins of global finance. Great Britain, France, and Germany were the titans, their empires spanning continents, their currencies the bedrock of international trade. But the war to end all wars accelerated some trends, obliterated others, and ultimately forged a new economic hierarchy. This is the tale of how that catastrophic conflict didn't just claim millions of lives and drain billions from national coffers, but how it fundamentally and irrevocably altered who controlled the world's wealth, how that wealth was generated, and the economic fault lines that would define a tumultuous century to come. The pre-war world was one of relative stability and predictability. The gold standard reigned supreme, ensuring a level of currency stability that facilitated international trade. European banks, particularly those in London, served as the world's financiers, funding everything from railroads in the Americas to rubber plantations in Southeast Asia. The British pound sterling was the undisputed king of currencies, accepted and respected globally. But the outbreak of war in 1914 shattered this carefully constructed system. As nations mobilized for total war, economic priorities shifted dramatically. Industrial production was redirected towards the war effort, with factories churning out munitions, uniforms, and other military necessities instead of consumer goods. This rapid reorientation of economies had far-reaching consequences. One of the most immediate and visible impacts was the abandonment of the gold standard. As governments scrambled to finance the war effort, they were forced to print money at unprecedented rates. This led to rampant inflation in many countries, eroding savings and destabilizing currencies. The British pound, once unassailable, began to lose its luster as the war dragged on and Britain's debts mounted. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, a new economic powerhouse was emerging. The United States, initially neutral, found itself in an enviable position. American farms and factories ramped up production to meet the insatiable demand from war-torn Europe. U.S. banks, flush with cash, began lending to Allied powers on a massive scale. By the time the U.S. entered the war in 1917, it had already transformed from a debtor nation to the world's largest creditor. The war's end in 1918 revealed a dramatically altered economic landscape. Europe lay in ruins, its industries destroyed, its populations decimated, and its governments saddled with enormous debts. The old colonial empires, while still intact, were weakened and increasingly reliant on American financial support. The United States, on the other hand, emerged as the world's leading industrial and financial power. This shift had profound implications for the global economy. The center of financial gravity moved from London to New York. American banks and corporations, enriched by wartime profits, began to expand their reach globally. The U.S. dollar, backed by the world's largest gold reserves, started its ascent towards becoming the dominant global currency. But the transition was far from smooth. The Treaty of Versailles, which officially ended the war, imposed crushing reparations on Germany. This burden, combined with the general economic devastation in Europe, set the stage for years of instability. Hyperinflation in Germany in the early 1920s wiped out savings and fueled political extremism. The United Kingdom, struggling to maintain its pre-war economic position, made the fateful decision to return to the gold standard at its pre-war rate in 1925, a move that would contribute to years of economic stagnation. The war also accelerated technological advancements and changes in industrial organization. Mass production techniques, honed during the war to produce everything from boots to bullets, were applied to consumer goods in peacetime. This led to the rise of consumer culture, particularly in the United States, where a booming economy and rising wages fueled demand for automobiles, radios, and other modern conveniences. The role of government in the economy also underwent a fundamental shift. The massive mobilization required for total war demonstrated the potential for state-directed economic planning. This idea would influence economic thinking for decades to come. From the New Deal in the United States to the rise of command economies in the Soviet Union and elsewhere, labor relations were another area profoundly impacted by the war. The need for increased production and the absence of men serving in the military opened up new opportunities for women and minorities in the workforce. While many of these gains were reversed in the immediate post-war period, the experience laid the groundwork for future social and economic changes. The war also reshaped global trade patterns. European powers, focused on rebuilding their shattered economies, loosened their grip on colonial markets. This created opportunities for new players, including Japan, which emerged as a significant industrial power in the aftermath of the war. The United States, with its vast natural resources and intact industrial base, was well positioned to fill the void left by Europe in global markets. Perhaps one of the most lasting economic legacies of World War I was the creation of international financial institutions. The need for coordinated economic action in the face of global challenges became apparent. While the League of Nations, established after the war, ultimately failed in its primary mission of preventing another global conflict, it set a precedent for international cooperation on economic issues. This idea would find fuller expression after World War II. At the creation of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The interwar years were marked by economic turbulence, culminating in the Great Depression of the 1930s. Many economists trace the roots of this global economic catastrophe to the unresolved economic issues left in the wake of World War I. The war had disrupted trade networks, created massive debts, and left a legacy of economic nationalism that hindered international cooperation in the face of economic crises. As we reflect on the economic impact of World War I, it's clear that its effects reverberated far beyond the immediate post-war years. The shift in economic power from Europe to the United States set the stage for American economic dominance in the 20th century. The breakdown of the old economic order created space for new ideas and new players on the global stage. The war's legacy can be seen in everything from the rise of state-directed economies to the creation of international financial institutions that still shape our world today. In the end, World War I didn't just redraw political maps. It redrew the map of global economic power. It accelerated trends that were already in motion and created new economic realities that would define the century to come. From the ashes of the old order emerged a new economic world, one that was more interconnected, more volatile, and ultimately more American. The echoes of this seismic shift continue to resonate in our global economy today. A stark reminder of how 4 years of conflict can change the course of economic history forever.